Hello, everyone. God, it feels like it's been forever since I last recorded something, but that's because I've just been so freaking busy. But thankfully, my workload is finally lightening up just a little bit, so I can finally get back to doing stuff on here. And, speaking of, today we're going to be reading The Danish Slaughterhouse, Chapter 17, Chapter 18, Helpless. So, let's begin. The green light of the watch's tiny screen shone brightly in the tiny closet as Emil played with its buttons, switching from the 12-hour display to the 24-hour one. According to the tiny date in the screen's corner, it was now day 4 of Matthias' mind going berserk. Emil was trapped in this mansion for 4 days, and the entrapment took its toll on him. He could feel his anxiety levels rising and his paranoia growing stronger. He felt like a rodent, hiding and running under the hungry eyes of a hawk, and the only thing he found to calm his nerves enough to prevent him from breaking down was to play with his digital watch. The prospect of surviving this hell and walking out alive was getting bleak. Yesterday, Emil slipped under Matthias' radar and switched rooms as the rules stated, but he came too close to Matthias as he did so. He could tell because he heard Matthias' footsteps pacing up and down the hallways and his voice mumbling to himself some strange words that Emil couldn't make out but felt he heard before. With that close call and the other encounter in his guest bedroom, Emil's hope of leaving this place shrank so much that the part of him wanted to simply get it over with, to limp out of the closet, find Matthias himself, and just be killed. It sure did feel better than sitting in a dark, cramped closet like this, his ripped stitches infecting his ankle. And then there was the others, Tino and Beryl, their bodies just lying there on the floor with their blood. They put blooding, but I think they were just supposed to put blood drained out of them, and the damage done to both of their bodies, and the room spoke just how much of a violent monster Matthias truly was. And their deaths meant there were 3 left, and that if Matthias didn't if Matthias didn't I think they were supposed to put kill anybody else. Peter was only a child. Matthias attacked once before, so there was no telling how easily he could be taken down. And Lucas. Emil didn't want to think about Lucas. He couldn't think about him in such a way as much as he didn't want to admit it. Emil saw the strength and resilience Lucas had in him, even as a small child. Emil noticed that Lucas, as a man and a nation, was hard to break or take down. That kind of strength was why Emil based a large probability of his survival on him. If Lucas can survive this, then there had to be some chance that Emil can as well, and they can both escape together. But if Lucas didn't make it... No, Emil immediately cut off that thought. No. He's strong, and he's going to make it. We both are going to make it. We have to. We will. As much as Emil tried to reassure himself, he didn't feel any better about the situation. In fact, thinking about it started to make him panic. Suffocating from his own fear, Emil cracked open the closet door and poked his head out. He took shallow, weak breaths of the cool air outside the closet, tasting the sweat forming from his brow as it rolled in beads down his face. He looked down the hallway for Matthias and then down at his watch. 2 minutes. Emil withdrew his head back into the closet. He wished that those 2 minutes would drag as long as they can. He wasn't ready to go back out there, despite his early contemplation of giving up and be cornered to his death by Matthias, but staying in one spot didn't work well for him before. Emil carefully stood up in the closet and wiped his sweat on his pajama sleeve. Taking a couple of deep breaths, he limped outside and stood quietly to listen. It was silent, but there was some faint noise going on around the corner. Ah, shit, Emil hissed under his breath. He turned back to the closet, quickly looked around for some weapon, and chose an umbrella from there. He then walked as fast as he can to the opposite direction of where Matthias was to avoid fighting him. He still needed to do something about his injury, and getting into a brawl that he wouldn't be able to win wasn't going to help. He went down the stairs, glancing over his shoulders to be sure that Matthias wasn't following him. Peter's upper body slouched from exhaustion as he sluggishly moved about. He was drained, and everything about this was making him ill. Missed meals, running here and there, being too alert to sleep, being worried about his parents, even though Peter was sure that if his brother couldn't fight, his father was strong enough to protect them both. And that smell of blood that drifted everywhere in the air and made its way into Peter's nostrils. Why is it so smelly? Peter wondered softly to himself. He was about to turn turned the corner when he quickly remembered that he was supposed to be more careful. He stopped and pressed himself against the wall, peeking his head around the corner for Matthias. His breath caught in his throat when he saw that a person was around the corner, but after taking a closer look, he realized that the person wasn't tall enough or walking right for it to be his uncle. In fact, it looked like it. Peter began to shout before he clapped his hand over his mouth. He shouldn't shout, no matter how relieved and overjoyed he was at finding Emil. But still, the way Emil limped bothered Peter, and that ankle was looking horrible. Peter was indecisive. He wanted to follow Emil and help him with his ankle as much as he can, but if he does that and Matthias catches them together, he might get angry and punish them with that electrocuting tiny robots inside them. With the last sign of Emil gone down the stairs, Peter decided to follow behind him. It was definitely better than being alone to him. Calm down, man. Just keep calm, Emil muttered to himself. He walked through the living room and into the kitchen, the umbrella clutched tightly in his hands. He stopped by the sink, stepping around the mess of broken dishes and blood that was around it, and feeling a tinge of fear of what could have caused it to get to the towel that hung on the rack by it. He took the towel, ran some water on it, and used it to clean the dried blood from his ankle and make himself feel a little less nauseous about his wound. He went about it quickly, knowing that Matthias could be nearby now. After scrubbing away the less noticeable bits of blood from his ankle, Mill tossed the towel into the sink and stood in front of it, looking at the outside world and watching the natural, placid life of the forest that surrounded him under the clear, bright sunlight. He pushed his sleeve up on his arm and checked his watch, again shaking his head solemnly. Trapped like damn animals, Emil grumbled. Emil! Yeah! Emil jumped and spun around quickly, holding the umbrella tightly and pointed for an attack. When he saw that it was simply Peter standing in the doorway, his hands went up to protect himself from any oncoming blows. Emil sighed in relief and lowered his weapon. "God damn it, Peter, don't sneak upon people like that, especially in a time like this," he hissed. "But don't shout." "Oh, sorry about that," Peter lowered his hands. "I'm just happy to see you is all. I've been so alone, and, have you seen Mama?" Emil went silent as the images of Peter's parents, Beryl and Tino, in their own blood and their bodies violated in ways he couldn't bring himself to imagine, flooded his mind. "Peter," he began before trailing off. The conflicting need to tell the child the truth and the wish to protect him from his own orphaned reality weighed heavily on Emil, where his entire body visibly went limp and weak. Peter noticed the sudden sovereign way Emil looked and frowned. "Emil, what's wrong? Is it my Mama and Papa?" "Yes." Emil moved around the kitchen's island to get closer to Peter, neither of them noticing the small clicking sound coming from the cellar door. "Peter, I found your parents." Peter's eyes flitted. Why can't I English today? Flittered toward the cellar's door, and he gasped as it swung open. "Emil, look out!" Emil looked and screamed as Matthias made a move to swiftly snatch him from behind. He swung his umbrella repeatedly at Matthias, who took all the hits without even slowing down so he could bend low to Emil's unguarded waist and grapple him. When he got a hold of Emil's waist in his arms, Matthias lifted Emil and dragged him over his shoulder and bolted for downstairs from where he came, sparing a moment to wink at Peter before disappearing into the basement door. Peter stood in the silent kitchen afterward, so surprised by the quick attack and abduction that he didn't move, didn't react, or even think clearly until seconds later as Emil's screams and cries reached him and shook him into action. "Emil! Emil, I'm coming!" Peter shouted as he ran after his uncle and cousin. Matthias was just ahead of him, struggling to hold the kicking and hitting Emil on his shoulder as he went. "Holy shit, Emil, would you stop thrashing around like that?" he grunted. "Let go of me!" Emil screamed. He gave one thwack of his umbrella after another on Matthias' back and squirmed wildly. Matthias gritted his teeth and grunted softly with each blow. He was bearing it all well so far, but it was getting more painful by the day, and he knew if he stopped now to even rest, he would seriously fall so far back from his goal, and he was so close to winning. And then there was that last resort he found, that one little trick up his sleeve if he needed it. "Uncle Matthias, stop!" Matthias looked over his unoccupied shoulder and cursed under his breath. Peter was coming in pretty close for a small kid, and Matthias would have been impressed, even outright ecstatic at having another chase to make it more fun for him, if it wasn't for the fact that he actually wasn't expecting Peter to come after him, and that he was getting exhausted. Matthias squeezed his eyes shut and tuned out the boys yelling, "Keep going, man, just keep going." He cut through an opening of shelves and wove through the rows of them in a random pattern to lose Peter as best he can. He then got to his knees and took Emil off his shoulder, covering his mouth and wrapping his arm around Emil to keep him still. No, come back, stop! Peter ran into the shelves as well and stopped when he lost sight of Matthews and Emil. Ah, crud! He stood and looked all around him to spot any sign of Matthews, squinting and using the little amount of light the weak light bulbs can offer to peer into the area. He remained quiet as well to listen to any little sound that could show their location. In Matthews' arm, Emil jerked his shoulders and limbs against Matthews with as much force as he could use while restrained. He started grunting in Matthews' hand, but whimpered and grew quiet when Matthews squeezed his jaw to silence him with pain. Come on, Peter, leave. Scram! Matthews thought as he held Emil down. Why isn't this brat leaving? Is he that dumb? Emil made a small, muffled sob of pain, making Matthews jerk Emil's head back roughly while still gripping his jaw to punish him. You be quiet, Ice, Matthews whispered into Emil's ear. I swear to God, if you make any noise and cry like a little bitch, I promise you. Okay, this is really, really gross. This next sentence is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Just, ugh. I'll ride your ass so roughly. God, this is disgusting. Your anus will bleed long after you're dead. Fuck. Emil bit into Matthew's palm hard and shook himself free when Matthews became distracted by the pain. He jumped to his feet and ran off, calling out Peter's name as he tried to get out of the labyrinth of shelves. Fucking shit, Matthews hissed. He shook his bitten hand and rose on his feet as well and turned to one of the bottles of wine that lied in the shelf. He took one out of its place and wielded its neck like a sword and went off in the same way Emil escaped, his entire face tense and shoulders tense with fury and impatience. Emil? Peter called back. He looked around and started to follow his voice, but Emil found him first. Grabbing Peter's arm, Emil pulled him along as he led him away from Matthews. Emil, you're okay. Yeah, now shut up and let's get out of here. Wait, shouldn't we fight him? What? There's two of us. We can fight him. Screw that. Just run. Ugh. To both their surprise, a flying wine bottle shot out and smashed against the back of Emil's head, spraying old wine all over him. Emil stumbled and fell on his hands and knees, feeling blood already gushing out and collecting in his wine-soaked hair. The broken remains of the bottle clanged in the distance, or maybe it only seemed far off because of the pain that was collecting in Emil's body. The ripping sinew of his injured knee, the soreness of his jaw, and the new gash in his head was taking its toll on him. Shit, oh shit, Emil cursed to himself as he panted. Emil! Peter got on his knees and gently shook Emil by the shoulders. Emil, come on, get up! Please, we have to get out! Emil! His bottom lip started to shake, and in a slowly weakening voice, he continued to beg Emil to rise up so they can escape. Jeez, Peter, you're a pretty stupid kid, you know that? Peter gasped softly and looked behind him. Matthew stood behind them both, with his arms crossed and his mouth pulled into a disappointed yet nonchalant frown in an obvious attempt to mask his exhaustion and irritation. Peter froze like a trapped animal as he looked up at his most real nightmare. Matthew shook his head and continued. You should have left, kid, to make it easier for the both of us. You would have saved yourself and kept yourself alive for another day. Ugh, now I have to find a way to kill you both at the same time. Man, and to think I had the thought of keeping you alive. No. Matthews raised an eyebrow and snorted. No, you don't want to be alive? No! Peter took the umbrella out of Emil's hand and swung it wildly at Why am I screwing up English so bad? At Matthews. Matthews swore and moved from side to side to avoid being hit by Peter, receiving a few hits that would have made him yelp in pain if he wasn't snickering in mild amusement. I hate you, Peter cried, his eyes as wild as his umbrella swinging. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. I'm gonna kill you. Oh, I'd love to see you try, you little shit, Matthews sneered. The snide smirk returned on his face, but he knew that despite the time of his life he's having, he still has to be cautious, especially with his body getting weaker and exhausted from fighting so many times. Still, he couldn't help but chuckle as he stepped left and right, steadily backing away as Peter grew bolder and angrier the closer he stepped to Matthews. Finally bored with the tactless sidestepping to avoid getting hurt, Matthews squatted low and made a sweeping kick to knock Peter off his feet. The umbrella that was in Peter's hand skidded away. Matthews quickly got up and took hold of Peter's shirt and shorts, picking him up and slamming him against the cellar's walls and shelves and floor. What happened to killing me, huh? Matthews taunted as he held the limp and whimpering boy by the neck. He shook him to get a response and laughed when Peter weakly lifted his fist to hit him, only to let it drop to his side. Can't do it now, can't you? Huh? What was that? Emil. Oh, now I see. Matthews laughed. He called over his shoulder. Hey, Emil. Peter needs ya over here. Emil, still get dizzy from the gash open from his head, stumbled to his feet and stood as straight as he could on wobbly knees. He pressed his hand on his wound and looked up. Although his vision became blurry, Emil could still see the smirk across Matthew's face and the lifeless-looking Peter dangling in his hand. You gonna help this poor brat, aren't you? I mean, he did kind of risk his life to save yours. He nodded towards the umbrella. Your little weapon over there. And there are plenty of wine bottles for you to choose from. Could even try tossing one right at the back of my head like I did you. No, Peter said softly, unable to completely beg for help. That is, Matthews continued, if you're bold enough. What you gonna do, Ice? As Matthews spoke, his grin stretched to Cheshire proportions, and the way he spoke, it was already weird in itself that he offered Emil the opportunity to hurt and even kill him. But the tone hidden in this suggestion was so taunting and provoking, like he was challenging him without being serious. It was as if he was saying that Emil couldn't do it, or wouldn't do it. When the idea dawned on Emil, he grew angry, not just because Matthew was having so much fun to tormenting them like this that he made this entire murder into a game, but because of being called weak-willed, especially when Emil was already injured without a chance to defend himself, which made the insult all the more unfair to him. He wanted to prove Matthews wrong. He wanted to take a bottle and smash it against Matthews' head so many times that his brain would ooze out and ultimately save the rest of them and put an end to this sickness. We're waiting eyes. And yet, maybe it was the blood loss in his head that screwed up his thinking, but he made the choice that proved Matthews right. He swiftly turned away and fled. Emil! Peter cried out a little louder after the retreating back. Emil, no! Emil squeezed his eyes shut and ignored Peter's cries as he sped up the stairs and out the door to the upper level. In his mind, he made up one excuse after another to justify running away like this. His leg was injured, his head was smashed open. Peter should have left, like Matthew said, but nothing to block out the angry accusations of cowardice and selfishness that rang louder in his head. Yep, I knew it, Matthew said. He turned his attention back to Peter and clicked his tongue in pity. Ah, poor little guy, he cooed as he brushed the tears on Peter's cheek away with his thumb. That just sucks, doesn't it? Will you do something for others just for them to turn their back on you? I know the feeling, which is why I'll do you a favor. He squeezed Peter's throat tighter, and Peter whimpered and gasped for air. Matthews then threw Peter to the floor and stomped heavily on his stomach, causing the child to cough and choke on vomit. Kneeling on top of Peter, Matthews gripped Peter's throat again and squeezed harder. Oh god, I think I'm gonna put a warning at the beginning of this video. I'll skip the rape and just end your misery quick, okay? Since I already got you a couple of times before, I guess it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Peter held onto Matthew's wrist, his teary eyes begging for his life to be spared before they slowly started to become empty. Tell your mother and father I said hi when you get to the other side, okay? Matthews told him, which was the last thing he heard before his lungs shut down. Shit, you're such a cute kid, too. Upstairs, Emil ran blindly, unsure where he was going, just somewhere that he could run and hide until he could get away at the end and forget this horror. And Peter, with his head down and his hand still pressed on his head, Emil half ran, half lunged until he bumped into something that knocked in down on his bottom. What, Emil? Emil looked up at his name being mentioned. Relief, sadness, and utter helplessness washed over him when he saw that it was Lucas, the person that he needed the most now. Leaning down in front of Emil, Lucas cupped Emil's face and examined it, taking note of the bloody mess and damage on it. Emil, oh my god, Lucas said in a hushed voice. Run, Emil panted. What? We have to run. Matthews, he and Peter. I didn't. Emil, what are you trying to say? What about Peter? We can't save him. I didn't save him. What? Hey, Emil, Matthew's voice called out from the lower level. I finished off Peter. Do you want to be next? I got plenty of time and energy if you do. Oh, shit, Lucas hissed. He helped Emil up and supported him as they evaded to the nearest room. They went inside the room's closet and closed the door, and for a few minutes they remained silent, listening to the sick cheerfulness of Matthew's voice as he seemed to pace the area they were near, until he started to whine and loudly called it quits. It was then that Emil couldn't hold it in anymore. Lucas, he cried quietly, sniffling and shaking from the trauma. I couldn't save him. Emil then pressed himself against Lucas' body, burying his face into Lucas' shoulder and tightening his arms around Lucas' hips. Normally, this exchange of affection would have been albeit welcomed action to Lucas, who couldn't even get the younger boy to call him Big Brother as often as he'd like, let alone get a hug from him. But under the circumstances they were in, it was completely understandable. Lucas returned the embrace, stroking Emil's silvery locks as Emil's body quivered with sobs. And that's the chapter. I think part of the reason why I didn't post another reading for a while was because I was just trying to put off the inevitable. And also because I got busy, of course, and kind of distracted with Fire Emblem Three Houses. Please no spoilers in the comments. I'm still working on all the routes. But, yeah, this chapter. What is there to say about it, really? Anyway, I think this is just going to be the Halloween special because I really don't have anything else planned because I've been so goddamn busy. But, yeah, that's everything. I'll see you guys next time.